I'm going to introduce a third element into this conversation now, because we have the Deputy Leader of the British National Party, Simon Darby, on the line. So I'd like to invite Hoppy Sen and Donald Blaney to...
I'd rather not.
You would rather not speak
because
to
I think you can't have a reasonable debate with a fascist organisation. I don't think a fascist organisation is going to be honest in what they say. I think they'll lie, and I think talking to them would lead to them just telling you untruths.
I take the view that it's wrong to no platform the BNP, because I think that it just makes them martyrs. So Donald and I...
Be aware he's not going to be telling you the truth.
Well, okay, well, fine, if that's your attitude. Simon, I don't know how much of that you caught on to. Welcome to the programme, first of all.
I caught about a minute of it, actually. I don't know what you were talking about previously.
Well, let me explain. We've had about a 5-minute debate between Hoppy Sen, who's a Labour blogger, and Donald Blaney, who's a right-of-centre blogger, a Conservative, about whether the BNP should be described as a left-wing or a right-wing party. So I thought, well, let's call you up, because maybe you can shed some light on this, first of all. Hope he doesn't want to take part in the conversation, because he doesn't think that it's right to speak to the BNP on this programme. But I just take the view that if the BNP is no platformed, it actually plays into your hands. So that's the view I take.
It also shows the gentleman isn't a Democrat as well. It doesn't believe in the concept of democracy. However, whether we are left or right, well, I like to think we do encompass some of the best parts of old working Labour, working man's Labour, and some of the best parts of what was the Conservatives' decade.
Well, define what you mean by best parts.
Well, in the interest of the little man, we've seen a lot of coverage about the way mainstream politicians have abused the system. And you've got to see that from the little man's point of view, the guy who doesn't feel particularly empowered. He is scrimping and saving away. He's got debts on his credit card. He has to look after his wife and kids. And how does that feel for him to see people passing themselves off as socialists?
Right, but when you're talking about being on the side of the little man, are you talking about being on the side just of the little white man?
Well, no, I think we've got quite a few black and Asian voters. I've got a whole Black Residents Association voting for us. People vote for different reasons. I've got all kinds of reasons why West Indian Christians are voting for us. I'll go through them if you want.
How many black candidates have you got?
Not at all, and they understand that. We are a party for the indigenous population. It's like asking the Muslim Lawyers Association how many non-Muslims they've got. You wouldn't ask that question,
a lot of black people are indigenous. They're second, third generation. They've been born here. Why shouldn't they be able to stand for the BNP if they wanted to?
Because they are not ethnically English.
They're British.
Irish.
They're British. They hold British citizenship.
They're British, but not ethnically British. You see, when you go down
that's not racist.
When you go down that road, you see, calling people racist.
What other word would you call it, Simon, if you won't allow British citizens to stand for your party?
It's a very difficult concept for you to understand, but
You're right.
When you start denying people like myself, English people like myself, the right to an identity...
Nobody's doing that.
You're the racist yourself.
Hang on,
yes,
hang on.
Would you, for instance, deny the Aboriginal Australians, the original Australians, the right to their identity?
No, of course not. And I don't. I'm English. I'm proud to be English. No one denies me my identity just because there happen to be people of a different skin colour here. If they're born in Britain, as far as I'm concerned, they're as English as I am. Why is that a difficult concept for you?
That's your point of view. That's your point, and you're entitled to that point of view, as I'm entitled to my own.
But it's irrational.
I don't believe that they are. Plenty of black and Asian people do understand that. They don't like the idea of their identity being taken either. I can't be a Jamaican.
But we're not trying to steal their identity. I mean, I have no problem with...
But you're trying to steal mine. That's what you're saying. The whole ethos of this liberal multiculturalism is denying the indigenous population of this country the status of a people, the status of a homeland, the status of their own culture. Now, it's wrapped up and sold as a fight against racism, but when you actually dissect it, it's actually a very virulent form of anti-white racism in itself.
Simon, if Iain will let me, I want to move on a little bit from the racism thing that the BNP always gets tarred with, and focus on your...
Unfortunate turn of phrase, Donald, but...
focus on your economic policy, which is not a free market policy. You don't embrace the sort of free market economic liberalism that the Conservatives do you?
No, we don't. I don't think we can see the fruits of our labour for embracing internationalism and globalism. The big picture is we've, in this country now, become very self-indulgent and materialistic. Money's a god now in this country, and we believe that that's fundamentally wrong. That's the big picture. Looking at
and whose fault's that? Is that the bankers' fault?
Bankers, politicians, establishment, state, system, church, you name it. It's pretty much everyone's fault.
And what would you replace that system with?
Well, we'd certainly replace it with honest politicians for a start, because looking at the way the system itself, and let's be honest, there's a lot of people in the media, in the BBC, who wouldn't want their expenses revealed either. Looking at the system itself, when you've got people in power at the moment, people who we're supposed to look up to and respect, they're our spokespeople, the people that we trust, whose ideology has been contaminated by their love of money, there's something fundamentally wrong with society. Now, I can see all kinds of side effects cascading down from that. The fact that people are short of money now, they're going to get even shorter of money, and how can they be expected to behave in a civil way, to abide by the laws and whatever, when you see people in Westminster who've committed criminal acts of fraud? Now, there's one aspect for you. It's simply breathtaking to see people like Gerald Kaufman, for instance, a so-called socialist, getting a £9,000 television. Now, when you bear in mind that Mr. Kaufman and his Labour Party have sent our troops off to an illegal war in Iraq, where they're being killed because the Ministry of Defence can't provide proper equipment for them, now, that's a very serious business.
You wouldn't be picking on Mr. Kaufman because he's Jewish, would you, by any chance?
No, I didn't even know he was Jewish, to be honest. But
with a name like Kaufman?
Well, I'm not an obsessive. I mean, you may think that all BN people are obsessive with names and whatever, but we've got Jewish people in the party. We've got Jewish councillors, so it simply isn't an issue.
But
really.
what I'm trying to get a handle on, Simon, is your economic policy. You don't subscribe to the sort of globalisation, free market approach that the Tories have embraced, certainly for the last 30, 40 years. You embrace a sort of protectionist approach, that Britain should put up tariffs against other nations so that we can have British jobs for British workers?
Yeah, I mean, protectionism has become a bit of a dirty word now in the liberal kind of consensus.
How would you cleanse it? How would you cleanse the word protectionism and replace it?
That's an word, cleanse, isn't it? That really is pushing the boat out. How would we modify? How about that? How would we modify that word to have it accepted or become more acceptable?
Yes. Well, what would you call it instead of protectionism?
Defensivism, really. It's just a natural instinct to protect your own industries.
But hasn't the success of Britain... I mean, we go back to sort of Britain's glorious past. Britain's success has been built on being a trading nation, built up by trading with countries around the world with minimal levels of tariffs so that everybody wins from free trade. Surely you're sort of more Marxist in your approach of saying that we shouldn't have that, we should smash the rich.
Please. Don't call me a Marxist, please. Listen, we've been going on about this free trade and how successful we've been. This country's been running at a loss for years and years and years. Our debt now has slowly been mounting. With the money that we've borrowed recently, we're in an enormous level of debt. So I don't think you can say that we're a success story. We've sold all our gold reserves off to Germany. We've been reliant on the Chinese and the Middle Eastern countries buying into our gilts and basically buying our debt to keep us going. America itself, which we've modelled our economy on, is nothing more than a giant debt recycling machine. And to say that that's successful, when you actually look at the balance books, I think that's stretching it a bit.
So the massive increases in living standards over the last 30, 40 years, what they're a mirage?
No, that's basically been brought about by oil, the energy that we've got by North Sea oil and cheap energy.
Mm-hmm.
Through that, I think all the technical side of things, when you actually look at the mechanics of what the petrochemical industry has done, whether it's pharmaceuticals or engineering and cheap transport and whatever, then that's pretty much down to that. But it's been brought on debt. It's like, for instance, I could have a wonderful lifestyle. I could go and buy myself a nice Aston Martin now and a £9,000 television and whack it on my credit card, but it wouldn't be real, would it?
Simon, I want to move on to the European elections tomorrow. What are you hoping for from those? What are your predictions for the BNP performance?
difficult, Ian. It really is. I'm going through it at the moment. I must be honest. I've had weeks